Shri Radha Krishna Bhagwan ki Jagat Guru Shri Kripalu Ji Maharaj ki. Once again, to everybody who's participating online and in person, heartfelt welcome to JKYog's Family Camp 2023. JKYog is a social and spiritual philanthropic organization that is actively engaged in the service of humankind. And therefore, although we have LTP programs around the world, in all those we are outwardly directed. The family camp provides us all an opportunity where there is no need to do any kind of marketing, to be inwardly directed. So, we all gather together as a family of devotees, particularly all the satsangs scattered around the country. For this 1 week, we come together as a JKYog family to celebrate, to devote, dedicate, nurture the bhakti within, and grow to become a better person. For that purpose, knowledge is absolutely essential. And from the point of view of knowledge, we always have either 1 or 2 lecture series in the family camp. This time, we are going to have the lectures on Bhakti Shatak in the mornings and the evenings. Bhakti Shatak, you all may be having it with you, those who are in person, is 100 dohas or verses composed by Jagat Guru Tam Shri Kripalu Ji Maharaj, in which he has crystallized the very essence of all the Vedic scriptures and gone into the depths of bhakti. So we will start off in this beautiful book from the beginning and then move to verse 41. Braj ras manasa rovara Bhakti Shatak yah mor radhe radhe.
Braj ras manasa rovara Bhakti Shatak yah mor radhe radhe.
Braj ras manasa rovara Bhakti Shatak yah mor radhe radhe.
Braj ras manasa rovara Bhakti Shatak yah mor radhe radhe.
पाठक जन बनी हंस जनु विहरहु प्रेम विभोर राधे राधे.
पाठक जन बनी हंस जनो विहरहु प्रेम विभोर राधे राधे.
पाठक जन बनी हंस जनु विहरहु प्रेम विभोर राधे राधे.
पाठक जन बनी हंस जनो विहरहु प्रेम विभोर Radhe Radhe.
So at the very outset he says, this Bhakti Shatak is a Manasarovar of Braj Ras. What is Manasarovar? Tulsidas ji, when he wrote the Leelas of Lord Ram, he said Ram Charit Manas. There is one Manasarovar next to Kailash. You have to physically go there to take a bath. And there is another Manasarovar of the divine pastimes of the Lord. The characteristic of the Manasarovar is that the swans congregate there. These royal birds, you will never find swans congregating in a garbage can. That is the haunt for the crows. You will not find crows congregating around an idyllic lake. So for those souls whose minds have been purified to some extent, and they seek to drink the nectar of the Lord's pastimes, this is the Manasarovar of Braj Ras. What is Braj Ras? Where God is no longer God. His almightiness has been finished, and he has been pulled to the level of his devotees. Who has the ability to finish the almightiness of God? He is Ajit, undefeatable. Natat samascha bhyadikascha drishyate parasya shaktir vividhaiva shruyate. There is nobody equal to God, nobody beyond God. That is what the Vedas say. But there is one entity that can destroy his almightiness, and that entity is called Prem, or divine love. It is the power of divine love that the Supreme Divine Personality, he finishes his almightiness, not per force, oh my God, what is happening to me, but out of delight, and comes to the level of the devotees. Now the divine loving pastimes take place. In these loving pastimes, sometimes the devotee takes the dominant position. Hey Kanhaiya, I am tired. Hold me on your back and take me, Sri Krishna's friends tell him. So can you imagine this kind of devotion anywhere else except for Braj? However, that kind of devotion has one prerequisite. At the very entry level itself, you need to become desireless. Desireless means even give up the desire for liberation. If you are willing to become truly a selfless lover, then enter into this Braj Ras. So Kripaluji Maharaj was the greatest Rasik saint to descend in this earth in the last 5,000 years. He bestowed the Ras, but the uniqueness was he also clarified it with the deepest principles of the Vedic scriptures. And that he has crystallized in this Bhakti Shatak. I could actually give a lecture on this for 100 days. But that would be only of interest of scholars. So when we discuss out here, we have to do a mix of both. With that idea, we will be delving into this. Now remember, the aim is to enter that lake of devotion. And yet, in love, knowledge too has a relevance. Some people say there is no need for knowledge, Swamiji, why do you give lectures? We'll only do Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is considered Prema Avatar, he said, Siddhant Baliya Chitte Na Karo Alos. In the understanding of Vedic scriptures, don't be lazy. The Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu states there are 3 levels of sadhaks, spiritual aspirants. The first class, like in India we used to have, which division did you pass by? First division, second division, third. Oh, third division, so sorry to hear. So the first category of sadhaks, Shastre yuktau cha nipunaha sarvatha dridha nischayah praudha shraddhodhikariya sabhakta uttamo mataha. One who has staunch faith plus deep knowledge. Such a sadhak moves ahead without any hindrances. Just keeps overcoming any obstacle that may come along the way. Because there's faith and there is knowledge to validate and keep the faith strong. This knowledge, we will see as we go through, will serve multiple purposes. The second category of sadhak, second division, this is called the Madhyamadhikari. Shastradishva nipunaha shraddhavan satu madhyamaha, who has got shraddha or faith. But the scriptural knowledge is missing. So this simple sadhak is moving ahead on the basis of shraddha. Yes, I believe there is Sri Krishna, I believe Radharani, etc. But in absence of the knowledge, this sadhak becomes vulnerable. Why? Because in the world you get kusang. Kusang means adverse association. Now, for example, you are doing bhakti of Radha Krishna. Now, there are all types in the world. Your friend in office asks you, what is this Radhe Radhe you started doing nowadays? No, I've met this Mukundananda and he told me, make God the goal of your life. So I've also started doing Radhe Krishna. Arey, tu kis chakkar mein pad gaya bhai? Your friend says, you have been duped. Don't you know Krishna was a loafer? He used to roam around after gopis. Now, if you don't have proper clarity, your faith will get shaken. That is why when somebody fights a war, they have a shield and a sword. Likewise, in bhakti, you need the bhav, the sentiments, and the knowledge. Hence, don't be lazy in the acquisition of scriptural knowledge. Tulsidas Ji was also a great bhakti saint who wrote the Ramcharitmanas. He says, Sohana Rama Prema Binu Gyanu Karnadhar Binu Jimi Jalayanu. Look, without Gyan, you will not be able to go ahead properly on this path. So, apply yourself to understanding. You don't need to understand unnecessary things. What are the elements of creation? What is Prakriti, Mahan, etc.? But the knowledge related to your path of bhakti, that should be clear. And for that purpose, we have the morning and evening lectures. In 2 previous bhakti sadhana camps, I had covered 1 to 20 and subsequently 21 to 40 verses. We will now in this one go straight to 41. देश काल नहीं नियम कछु नहीं कछु श्रेष्ठाचार राधे राधे
देश काल नहीं नियम कछु नहीं कछु श्रेष्ठाचार राधे राधे
देश काल नहीं नियम कछु नहीं कछु श्रेष्ठाचार राधे राधे
देश काल नहीं नियम कछु नहीं कछु शिष्टाचार राधे राधे
सरल हृदय नहीं छल कपट प्रेम पंथ बलिहार राधे राधे
सरल हृदय नहीं छल कपट प्रेम पंथ बलिहार राधे राधे
सरल हृदय नहीं छल कपट प्रेम पंथ बलिहार राधे राधे
सरल हृदय नहीं छल कपट प्रेम पंथ बलिहार राधे राधे
When we go on the spiritual path, we develop the spiritual aspiration. In the Hindu tradition, the first problem that arises is there are so many paths. Now, in other religious traditions, it is simple. There is one instruction, you do it. And in Hinduism, there is Ashtanga Yoga, there is Bhakti Yoga, there is Jnana Yoga, there is Hatha Yoga. It becomes a very perplexing scenario. And people ask me, why is it so perplexing in Hinduism? I say, look, knowledge is infinitely complex. It can be always simplified and explained. Now, the deeper you go into it, the more its branches increase. Like, for example, when you first started studying science, it was introduced to you as one subject, general science, at least in my time. And then when you progressed 2 more grades, it broke into 3 branches, physics, chemistry, and biology. And then when you reached the 11th and 12th grade, it had so many branches. And if you go into BSc in any college, you find that science has got hundreds of branches. So as the knowledge starts becoming subtle, its branches increase. It's not the fault of Hinduism, it's just that Hinduism has gone deeper into the spiritual practices. But when we have so many practices, we need to understand the specialty of the bhakti process or the path of love which we have chosen as our practice. Firstly, all the scriptures say you can engage in any of the spiritual practices. However, without bhakti, you cannot attain the Supreme. We should open our ears loudly and hear this. The Vedas say, Upasate purusham ye hya kamaste shukrame tadati vartanti dhira. Those who, giving up all desires, engage in upasana or bhakti, they will cross over Maya. The Bhagavatam has stated it even more emphatically. Mam bhaktya mekaya grahya shraddhayatma priya satam bhaktim punati mannishtha shvapakan api sambhavat. Sri Krishna says, Uddhav, by bhakti alone is the Lord reached. Sorry. Just increase the monitors a little. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there is no scope for doubt at all. Bhaktya mam abhijanati bhaktya tunanyaya shakya bhaktya labhyastvananyaya. In every place Sri Krishna says, look Arjun, God is attained through bhakti. Like David will be telling you, only love, what's that? What's the line? All you need is love. So this love, this bhakti is such an astonishing sadhana. It can be practiced at any age. Prahlad practiced it when he was in the womb. Dhruv practiced it as a 4-year-old. Ambarish practiced it in his youth. Dhritarashtra did bhakti in his old age, close to death. Parikshit practiced it at the time of death. So Kripaluji Maharaj, he says, this bhakti is such a thing that it is beyond rules and regulations. You can do it at any age, you can do it with any activity. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad juhosi dadasi yat. Sri Krishna says it is not that you have to put the arti plate in your hand and then alone can you do bhakti. You do bhakti with every activity you perform. And if you wish to engage in rituals, well, every ritual should be done with devotion. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapah, Vasudeva paro Dharmo, Vasudeva paragati. This beautiful verse of the Bhagavatam says, the purpose of every ritual is actually the pleasure of the Lord. It says every Vedic mantra is pointing to God. However, not everyone wants God. Some people want to think, I am God. Some people are not interested in God, they just want to manipulate the energies within themselves. So the Vedas, they don't reject anyone. Just like when you have a bucket falls into the well, a hook is thrown inside, a rope, and the rope has multiple hooks on it. Let the bucket get stuck in any of these. Somehow or the other, let it come out. Likewise, God says, whatever be your nature, the Vedas are giving you ways to move ahead. But the ultimate purpose of the Vedas was God. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyo vedanta krit veda videva chaham. Arjun, Sri Krishna says, by all the Vedas I am to be known. This bhakti is done both by the sadachari and the durachari. One who is self-controlled, well-mannered, that person is also welcome in bhakti. One person who is ill-mannered, uncontrolled, who is practically good for nothing, what does that person do? You are also welcome in bhakti. Sri Krishna has said, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. There is one achar, actions, one durachar, bad actions, sudurachar, extremely terrible actions. And the person who is doing it, such a sinful person, says, will I get entry into bhakti? Sri Krishna says, even that sudurachari, if he enters the realm of bhakti, Arjun, consider him to be a sadhu. Sadhu means a good person, because he is correctly situated. He has developed the highest goal, and by my grace he will keep getting purified and slowly reach there. So, anybody can do bhakti in any place, at any time, through any material. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. You have a flower, start your bhakti with the flower. Swamiji, flowers have all disappeared, it's the month of December. You have a leaf, do bhakti with the leaf. Swamiji, I am from Boston, the leaves have also disappeared, fall season. Is there some water? Patram pushpam phalam toyam, offer the water to the Lord. If you do it with love, he will melt. That is what we saw Advaita Acharya did. 550 years ago, Advaita Acharya, he saw the situation of the people in Bengal. They were all involved in dry speculative knowledge and ritualistic practices, and Advaita Acharya said, my Lord, you alone can now come and redeem everyone. But how do I call you to in your avatar? So I have heard, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, that if one offers to you a leaf and water with love, you will respond. So he just took the leaf, Tulsi leaf and Ganga Jal, and started crying out. And that is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's avatar took place. So imagine such a wonderful thing as bhakti. But at the same time, Kripaluji Maharaj has said out here that what you need in bhakti is a simple heart. Sarala Hridaya, like a child's heart. A child is simple and trusting. That kind of heart. Sarala Swabhava Naman Kutilai. The Ramayana says, where there is no deceit, no cunningness, that kind of simplicity you will find in children's hearts. So the Bible has also said, blessed are those who are like children, for they shall enter the kingdom of God first. A child doesn't know cunningness. One little child came to me and said, Swamiji, I loved your pravachan, especially when you finished it. Another child came and said, Swamiji, you need to make my father also into a Swamiji. He lectures me every day. And the third child came and said, Swamiji, I want to go to heaven because my elder brother will not be there. The fourth child came and said, Swamiji, you said God loves us all, but God has not met my elder sister as yet. That, of course, is a joke. But we find that so many saints, out of simple love and trust, they attain the Lord. You know, in Karnataka, the story of Kanakadas is well known if you have gone to the holy place of Udupi. When you walk into this famous Krishna temple, where the deity is supposed to be 5,000 years old, it was worshipped by Rukmini. And it was discovered by Madhvacharya 750 years ago. And he is the one who installed it and made the temple. But when you walk into the temple, through the main door, you find the back of the altar. And then you have to walk around to have darshan. Now, is there any temple where through the main entrance you go and you find the back? Imagine this altar is like this, and then you go around to have darshan. But there's a story behind it. The priests who used to worship the Lord, they were caught up in their wrong understandings. So Kanakadas was a great devotee of the Lord. But from the socially neglected, marginalized sections of society, and when he came for the darshan, these priests, they stopped him. They said, no, you are not permitted. So he said, I wanted to have darshan of Sri Krishna. No, he will not give you darshan. So Kanakadas, he went around the temple, and from outside he started crying to the Lord. And his cries, which were so devotional, that the Lord said, these priests have got a wrong understanding. Let me give you darshan and affirm this principle for the rest of Kali Yuga. So the wall broke and a window got created. It is there even till today, called the Kanakanakindi, through which the Lord gave darshan to Kanakadas, and the altar spun around and God gave darshan to him. So whether you are big or small, rich or poor, intellectual or not, whatever be the case, in fact, very often intellectuals are handicapped. Vedavyas has said, Yascha mudha loke, yascha buddhe parangata. Two people can do bhakti easily. One is the saint who has gone beyond the intellect, who is now empowered with God's wisdom. And the other is the simpleton. Guruji said, do mara mara. All right, Guruji. That was Ratnakar. So either the simple person, Guruji says, this stone is God. All right, Guruji. Such people can do bhakti. Or if you go beyond the intellect, then you do bhakti. In between, the danger is always there. Oh, Hanumanji, he went and got the Sanjeevani. In a few hours, how did he fly through the sky? What combustible fuel was he using? So these kinds of doubts which we create with our material intellect, he says, have a simple heart and you will sail through the bhakti process. Let's see the next one. जीव माया दुई शक्ति है, शक्तिमान भगवान। राधे राधे।
जीव माया दुई शक्ति है, शक्तिमान भगवान। राधे राधे।
जीव माया दुई शक्ति है, शक्तिमान भगवान। राधे राधे।
जीव माया दुई शक्ति है, शक्तिमान भगवान। राधे राधे।
शक्ति भेद अभेद भी, शक्तिमान तेजान। 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 राधे राधे।
Now he is going into a little depth. Once, Pappu came from school. He was a third grader, and he said, "Mummy, we've got a PTA meeting in school." Mummy said, "I received no notification." He said, "Mummy, this is going to be a small PTA meeting." Mummy said, "Who all will be present?" "Only the principal, yourself and myself." It will be a small group. So, like I said, the world is infinitely complex. For the sake of understanding, it is simplified and explained to us. So the three entities become the focus of the various acharyas. One is God, the second is the soul, and the third is the world. What is the relationship between God, the soul, and the world? Big philosophers have written theses on this. So the first Jagat Guru, now Jagat Gurus were saints who were, of course, full of divine love, but they had such a mastery of scriptural knowledge that completely mesmerized the scholars of their times. And all these scholars admitted that this knowledge is not humanly possible. It is divinely inspired. And when all the scholars of the time saw that this particular saint, by virtue of that scriptural knowledge, has been able to vanquish all the prevailing philosophies of that time to establish a higher understanding, they conferred the title of Jagat Guru on that personality. And probably most of you aware of Indian history know that the first Jagat Guru was Shankaracharya, Adi Shankara. When he came is a matter of dispute. Earlier on they used to say he came 2500 years ago. Modern historians have started saying that he came 1400 years ago. However, The Govardhan Peeth, he established 4 mutts, right? So the Govardhan Peeth in Puri, the records clearly state he came 2000 years ago. Roughly 2000 years ago, Shankaracharya, he expressed it like this. His philosophy is called Advaitvad. So first of all, do you give me the permission to go in a little depth? See, when the Vakta or the speaker speaks, he keeps looking at the beautiful faces of the listeners, whether they are understanding or not. Because if they are not understanding, then he doesn't remain a Vakta, he becomes a Bhakta. Once, in a house of God, the preacher was giving a lecture and one man was sleeping. And he was not only sleeping but also snoring. The snoring became so loud it was disturbing even to the speaker. So the preacher said to the man next to him, "Please wake him up." That man said, "You put him to sleep, you wake him up." So when I go into the depths of the scriptures, I am very wary. Will people understand or not? So if you all permit, this is the only opportunity. We can't do it in the LTPs, right? Shankaracharya presented Advaitvad. There is only one entity. So the question is, if there is one entity, then what is Maya? Because if the material energy exists, then there is one Maya and one Brahman. So there are 2 entities. So Shankaracharya said, there is no Maya. You've got a psychological defect, hence you are perceiving Maya. It is mithya, it is non-existent. It is only existing in your mind. This idea that the world is non-existent exists even in Western philosophy. There is subjective idealism, objective idealism. Starting from Plato himself, Fichte, Hegel, Kant, Berkeley, they presented the idealistic theory, and Berkeley is considered the father of idealism. Very much like Shankaracharya, he said the world doesn't exist, it's only your perception. Like the movie Matrix, something like that. So this is what Shankaracharya presented. The later Jagat Gurus questioned, you are saying the world doesn't exist? Really? The Vedas say God is all-pervading in the world. Tad srishtva tadevanupravishya tadanupravishya satyatyacha bhavat niruktancha niruktancha nilanancha nilayanancha satyancha nitancha tat satyam abhavat yadiktan kincha. So when the Vedas say that God is all-pervading in the world, how come you are saying it doesn't exist? And if it really doesn't exist, then why are we perceiving it? So Shankaracharya said, you are in ignorance. You are perceiving it. Your lack of knowledge is making you perceive it. When you become a Brahmagyani, the world will cease to exist. So in that case, ask the Brahmagyanis, sir, you are a Brahmagyani? Yes. Has the world stopped existing for you? If it has, then why do you eat food? If it has, then why do you write books? Where is the paper coming from? Where is the pen coming from? After becoming a Brahmagyani, if you are using worldly objects, it means the world is very much existing for you. So, this principle was questioned by the Vaishnava Acharyas. They said you can call the world a Sat, temporary. But you cannot say it is mithya, it is non-existent. The second point is that if there is only one entity, then what is the soul? Where does the soul come from? So Shankaracharya said, if I accept the soul as a separate entity, then again there will be Dvait. So he said, Jivo Brahmaiva Nahpara, the soul itself is God. So what about so many souls? We got 400 participants and one Swamiji. Now if you go by Advaitvad, there is only one. So who will Swamiji give a lecture to then? Lecture can only happen when there is more than one. That was the question that the gopis asked to Uddhav. They said, Uddhavji, you are teaching us Advait. Then why are you giving us lectures? If you were actually an Advaiti, you would see only Uddhav everywhere. But you are seeing these are the gopis, they don't know, I am Uddhava Jnani, I need to tell them. Means you are in Dvait, you are in duality. So, further, if there is only one entity, then what are the Vedas? Think. Now we're going into deeper philosophy. Is everybody still with me? So if there is only one entity, everybody is listening? Leenwan, are you listening? If there's only one entity, what are the Vedas? Because if you accept the Vedas as Satya, now you've got two entities, Brahman and Vedas, two entities. So if you say that the Vedas are mithya, then how will the Vedas give you knowledge of Brahman? This was a paradox for Shankaracharya as well. And to resolve it, he did a little compromise. He said the Vedas are Satya before God realization. After God realization, they become mithya. The same kind of compromise he did with the Guru as well. Because if you accept there is one Guru and one disciple, again you have come in Dvait. Now the Vedas are saying that the disciple needs to surrender to the Guru. And Shankaracharya is saying there is only one entity, so who is the Guru then? So he says, no. Before God realization, you keep the relationship. Afterwards, you become one. These kinds of philosophical hitches got created in Shankaracharya's philosophy. I needed another half an hour to explain, but I will not. See, this is Shankaracharya's Advaitvad. Now Ramanujacharya, he said no, Vishesht Advaitvad. So why did Shankaracharya teach like this? Was he not God realized? Of course he was. But he was teaching in a particular situation. When he was teaching, all of India of the time had become Buddhist. So these Buddhist people were neither believing there is a soul nor there is God. Buddhist philosophy is nihilist, neither soul nor God. Now to them, if he says, chant the names of God, they will say, what are you talking about? So to bring them back into the Vedas, Shankaracharya presented a veiled interpretation of the Vedas. Mayavadam asatchastram prachannam baudhamuchyate mayaiva vihitam deli kalau brahmana murtina. Shankarji tells Parvati in the Padma Puran, this Advaitvad, O Parvati, is a veiled form of Buddhism. I preach it myself in Kalyug when I descend in the form of a Brahman, which was Shankaracharya. So Ramanujacharya, he modified that and he said, Vishisht Advaitvat. There is one entity, but in the one there is variety. Just like there is one tree, but it's got leaves, and it's got fruits, and it's got flowers. So in the one there is variety. Likewise, Ramanujacharya said that look, in the Brahman there are two Visheshan. One is Jeev, the soul, one is Maya. They are all part of the Brahman, but they are two Visheshans of it. Along came Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya, just to cut Advait, he emphasized Dvait, duality. He said, what non-duality are you talking about? There is one soul and there is another soul. Now one has become God realized, doesn't mean that all have become God realized. Otherwise there is no need for all of you to do sadhana. Just get the most sincere person and say, all right, you do sadhana, we will get God realized the moment you become God realized. But common sense is the most uncommon sense, right? So Advaitis are not able to understand that each soul is different. There is simple Dvait. So Madhvacharya said there is a difference between soul and soul. There is a difference between soul and Maya. There is Swamiji and this keyboard. Now you say, Swamiji, you are sitting just like the keyboard. Arey Baba, keyboard is an insentient object. I am a sentient object. Why are you comparing me with keyboards? So there is a difference between Jeev and Maya. There is a difference between Maya and Maya. I am speaking through this mic. I am not speaking through the keyboard. I am playing the keyboard. I am not playing the mic. So there is a difference out here. There is a difference between Maya and Brahman. There is a difference between the soul and Brahman. The 5 differences got emphasized by Madhvacharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he reconciled all of this. He said, actually, Shankaracharya is right, and Ramanujacharya is right, and Madhvacharya is also right. Say, what is this? Some kind of diplomatic sitting on the fence? Kripaluji Maharaj has endorsed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy. So Kripaluji Maharaj was the 5th original Jagat Guru in Indian history. And he was honored as Jagat Guru Tam. So when I first came to him, I had already read the philosophies of Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Ramanujacharya. And when I heard his philosophy, my mind got blown. My God! I have not seen in history any Acharya explain philosophy so logically. So now he is explaining out here that Jeev and Maya, the soul and material energy, are the Shaktis of God. Shakti means energies. So there is God, Maya is his energy, and the soul is also his energy. And these energies and the energetic, they have a simultaneous relationship of oneness and difference. Just like the sun and its light. You can say the sun and light are 2 different objects, or you can say the sun and the light are one. Like for example, at 6:20, at 6 o'clock today, the darkness night had already vanished. Sunlight was there, but the sun had not risen. So the light is different from the sun. But sometimes you combine them into one. That is why people sometimes say, sit in the living room, the sun comes there. The sun comes in your living room? Yes, every day in the winters. That's why we've chosen the living room. It's a very sunny room. You know, the sun, its temperature on the crust is 1 million degrees centigrade. Now you want me to sit in your living room where there is the sun, at 1 million degrees centigrade, will I survive? No, it's not the sun itself, it's the light. But in speech, we are saying it is one as well. So likewise, Kripaluji Maharaj says that there is oneness. Everything is one entity because it is all the energies of God. And at the same time, there is also distinction. One is the energetic and the other is the energy. So he has reconciled the viewpoints of the previous acharyas. That's why he was honored by the Kashi Vidvat Parishad as Samanvay Acharya. So with that, we'll do a little kirtan and a little meditation and then continue with the sadhana program. Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Everyone.
Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe.
Radhe Jaya, Radhe
Shri Radha Krishna Bhagwan ki. I think we will, the time is up. We will continue with the sadhana program. Next lecture, I'll time it better so we have a little time for meditation as well.